So we're still on page 3. Now we're on letter B. It says graph y equals x squared minus 4x minus 1. So the first thing we're going to do is find our axis of symmetry. That's the middle part of our table. X equals negative b divided by 2 times a. A is 1, b is negative 4, and c is negative 1. That's a c. Remember, we don't care about c though right now. So this one's kind of tricky. We have a negative, but then we have a negative 4 over, 2 times 1. So now you could say 2 negatives make a positive, or you could type it in the calculator like that. Either way, you'll end up with an x equals 2. So that is the middle of our table. So 2 goes right here, okay? And now we're gonna go work backwards. 1, 0, negative 1, 3, 4, 5. So that's what we want our table to look at. What I'm gonna do now is go to Desmos and type our problem into the Desmos graphing calculator. Now what you could do, if you want, you can delete this whole thing. Yeah, I'm just gonna delete it. It's not liking me right now. Kind of like some of you guys. Y equals x squared minus 4x minus 1. Okay, now you can, if you look at the graph, you can see our u has shifted over a little bit to the right. So make my table. Our table starts at negative 1. So I'm going to just try to delete this. Okay, cool. Sometimes things work nicely and sometimes they don't. Okay, so there's my table. I made the left side match with what I have written down. And now I'm going to come back here and write it down. 4. Next step is take these points and plot them on our graph. Negative 1. And connect them, make it look as close to a U as you can. Oops, I missed that one, but that's okay because it's not delta math. So now going back up to our directions, create a table of values, graph the points, label your graph, y equals x squared minus 4x minus 1. Step 5, label the x-intercepts, y-intercept, and turning point. So our x-intercept, problem is I didn't plot that very nicely. Our x-intercept is like right there. So here's one of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's just say 4.5. And this x-intercept is negative about a half. So I'm going to say negative 0.5. Our y-intercept is right here. Y equals negative 1. And the last thing, our turning point, our vertex is right here. You could call it vertex or turning point, that's fine. And that is the middle of our table at 2, negative 5. Last thing we're going to do, the increasing and the decreasing. I always like to work from left to right, so I'm going to start here. Our graph is going downhill, so I'm going to do decreasing. And it goes from negative infinity, and use that vertex x value to 2. And really, when it goes back up, it's backwards. When it increases, it goes from the vertex to infinity. Okay, let's move to the next page. Remember, if you haven't done this yet, give it a shot. There's some tricks on these problems. First, we're going to do our axis of symmetry. In this problem, a is negative 1. There's no x term. B is actually 0 and C is 6. So when I use the axis of symmetry, B is 0. So you could say -0 or just 0 over 2 times -1. Either way, you end up with 0. So when we make our table, 0 goes in the middle. -1, -2, -3. So to save a little bit of time on the video, what I would do now is go back to Desmos, put the problem in, find the table. But again, to save time, what I'm going to do is just copy the table down that I have. -3. And you should copy this down as well. Okay, so there's my table. Now I'm going to plot the points. The more of these you do, the more it just gets kind of straightforward. As with anything, the more you practice, the easier it gets. Doesn't mean it's going to be more fun, but it does get a little bit easier. So there's my graph. Now, just like we did on the first page, we have to do our x-intercepts. Those x-intercepts are right there. X equals, we'll say 2.5. If it's not on the whole point, I just round it to a half. Okay, so 2.5 and -2.5. Our y-intercept is up here. And actually, our vertex or turning point is the same. I got all that labeled. One thing I forgot to label was my actual graph with the problem. -x² plus 6. Okay, so I did that. Label, label, label. Now I'm going to do my increasing and decreasing. I'm going to do the increasing first. So we start here. We got an infinity. Goes from here up to this point. Always steal the x number. So from -infinity, because we're on the left side, to 0. And then my decreasing, okay, just move that over here. Oh no, yep, oops, sorry, 0. And then as it goes downhill, it's got an arrow to positive infinity. Last problem on this page, last problem of this assignment, we got to do our axis of symmetry. And if you haven't tried one of these on your own, pause this and give it a try. A is 2. Here's our B value. B is -4. And there's no C. But remember, we don't care about that right now. So we have a negative B. Negative, and B is -4, all over 2 times A, which is 2. So that problem gives us 1. Remember, axis of symmetry tells you the middle of your table. So there's a 1 here. So now I'm going to count backwards. 0, -1, -2. And to get my values, what I did was I went to Desmos, put the problem in, and I found the table. To save some time on our video, I'm just going to write it down. And I have 16, 6, 0, -2. There's our middle. 0, lunchtime. Okay, I cannot plot the point 216 on here. It's too big, so I'm just not going to. I'm going to do -1, -1, 6, 0, 0, 1, -2, 2, 0, and 3, 6. Before I forget, I'm going to label my equation with my problem. 2x² minus 4x. Okay, x-intercepts. Runs right here, 0, 0. And then 1's over here. I'm going to say, oh, it's 2, 0. It's an actual point. So our x-intercept is x equals 2. Our y-intercept is right here. Y equals 0. Our vertex, it's all very tight right here. Vertex is the middle, 1, -2. All right, I think we've got everything labeled. Now we're going to do our increasing and decreasing. We start with the arrow and it's going downhill. So I'm going to do decreasing first. It goes from negative infinity to, steal the x number, 1. And now increasing, oops, we just move that 1 down here. 1, 2, it's going up forever, infinity. A lot of this was review. Hopefully you remember that. And as always, if you have any questions, please ask me. It doesn't get easier if you don't ask, so make sure you ask if you need help on this assignment.